We're very excited to be all here for the Brooklyn Book Festival, to have you here. Thank you for supporting by coming, and if you want to support these free programs, you can go to our website and support there. And we're very excited to be for this panel of Spirits and Monsters with Kevin Chen, Miri, Gerardo Sámano Córdova, and Jeremy Tiang. So please give a round of applause for our guests, and thank you for coming again.
Miri です。
Nice to meet everybody. I'm Miri.
日本の、福島から来ました。
I'm from Fukushima in Japan.
福島の、福島第一原発という事故があった原発から、16キロ地点で、本屋をやりながら小説を書いています。
I write novels. At the same time, I run a bookstore about 16 kilometers from the nuclear power plant that had the disaster back 20 years ago, I guess.
今日皆さんとお話できるのすごく楽しみに。
I'm excited to be here for the opportunity to talk with all these great writers.
Thank you, Miri. Thanks everyone for being here. And hi, I'm Jeremy Tiang. I am moderating the panel, and I guess we are starting with self-introductions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gerardo Sámano Córdova. I'm a writer from Mexico City, but I just moved here to Brooklyn 2 months ago. So, yay! So yeah, I'm also very excited to share the panel with these wonderful writers. It's such an honor. And to be in this church to summon the spirits, so.
Oh, and Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Are we actually in a church? Oh my God.
We are.
I have never had a panel ever in a church. I just feel like singing, you know. My name is Kevin Chen. I'm from Taiwan. I actually live in Berlin, but in the past 7 weeks, I actually have been living in Iowa. And every time when I'm talking about Iowa, people give me a face, like, you know, don't do that, okay? Because there they have this prestigious writers workshop, and I'm there for this international writing program, which is closely related to the workshop, and it's just a great honor to share the panel with these two beautiful writers. Thank you.
So we are here today to celebrate Miri's The End of August, translated by Morgan Giles, Gerardo Sámano Córdova's Monstrilio, and Kevin Chen's Ghost Town, translated by Darryl Sterk. I'll introduce each of these writers more fully as I bring them into the conversation. All three of these books deal with language and the hauntings of family and history. Gerardo Sámano Córdova is a writer and artist from Mexico City, currently living in Brooklyn as of 2 months ago, and he has an MFA in fiction from the University of Michigan. Monstrilio is his first novel. Congratulations, Gerardo. Let's start with the role of language, specifically the fluidity that your book shows between English, Spanish, and German, as the characters also move between these regions. The book begins with the grief-stricken wife, Margos, remembering how she and her husband, Joseph, see a tree differently. To him, it's a dogwood. To her, it's a Corneo florida. And as they move across borders to Mexico City, to Berlin, to Brooklyn, with relative privilege, they also find that they are unable to outrun the things that are haunting them. Could you talk about your own engagement with language and this kind of mobility and how it feeds into your writing?
Yes, absolutely. The three places, or like the three main places that are in the book, I've lived there. I'm from Mexico City, but I spent a considerable amount of time in New York. I'm back here again, and I also spent time in Berlin. So those three places to me mean a lot. it's kind of like a conglomerate of home. So home for me is that like roaming spirit that kind of like inhabits a little bit of these places. And so I wanted to write in a way that kind of like embodied that, not one specific place, but the combination of all of them, and how you find yourself different when you travel and when you speak different languages, and what ends up being your language. And I think, I mean, this may sound cheesy, but it's love. And so the characters love these places, and they find a certain amount of healing as they move through these spaces. And so, yeah, that was very important to me to have the book, even though I see books out there that have like one specific place and they're wonderful, but I couldn't find myself writing that, because for me and for my own personal experience, I don't have one specific place, but rather this combination of places, and also the movement between them. That's been my experience, and that's how I found home.
Do you feel you have a sense of belonging to one place, or many places, or no place?
Sometimes I feel like no place, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just floating around. But I do really feel like I belong to these places, and it's also about the people that you encounter in them, and just finding kind of like your niche in those places, and how like the way you are within those spaces. And so for me, home is moving, and so like now I'm here and I do feel like I'm home. When I'm in Mexico City, I do feel like I'm in home. I just spent some time in Berlin last year after many years of not being there, and it felt eerie in the sense of like, how do I feel so comfortable after many years of not being there? And I feel like a part of my spirit was there, and I kind of like just reattached to that, like I plugged in, and I was that version of myself. And so that's, yeah.
Great. Well, 2 months in Brooklyn, and you're at the Brooklyn Book Festival. So
Yes.
That's a great way of plugging in.
Yes, absolutely.
Now I'd like to bring in you, Miri, who is a Korean author writing in Japanese with over 20 books to her name. She has received the Akutagawa Prize, Japan's most prestigious literary award, as well as the 2020 National Book Award for Literature in Translation for Tokyo Ueno Station, which was like The End of August, her most recent translation, translated by Morgan Giles. Miri-san, The End of August is set between the 1920s and the 1940s in Japanese-occupied Korea. And there's a certain amount of language fluidity between Korean and Japanese, and even a bit of Chinese because of the entangled history of these countries. But in many cases, it's not a voluntary fluidity, but rather some of the characters have their own language taken away and another imposed on them. Could you expand on your relationship to Korean and Japanese and the way the novel mediates between them?
Kevin さんでしたっけ?
Was your name Kevin?
Kevin, Chen Si-hong.
Kevin Chen Si-hoさん。
私は、日本にも日本人でもないし、韓国人でもないというそのないところにアイデンティティがあると思ってます。
I believe that my identity lies somewhere in between being Japanese or Korean. I'm neither of them.
それが、普通アイデンティティっていうのは例えば男であるとか女であるとか何人であるとかどこに住んでるっていうことあるっていうことで積み重なっていくのですが、私は、生まれつきないそのあることとあることの間にないところにあるという意識を持っています。
Well, usually one's identity is defined by whether or not that person is a man or a woman, or perhaps where that person comes from, or where they live. So the identities are formed by having something to refer to. However, I was born without anything. I didn't have anything when I was born, and that, I think, is where my identity lies.
そういう意味では、私の存在というのは在日韓国人という間にいる存在なんだけれども、見えない存在というか亡霊的な、存在、社会的に亡霊的な存在で、あるというふうに言えるかもしれません。
So my existence, once again, lies somewhere between being Korean and being Japanese. I'm not neither of them. So my identity, you can say, has to do with being invisible, being somewhere in between. And socially, it's almost like being a ghost.
その言語の言葉の問題も私は今日本語で喋っているのですが、私の父と母は朝鮮戦争が起きた時に難民として日本に逃れてきたんです。
Well, I would like to refer to the language issues. Well, as you can see, I speak Japanese and that's my language. However, my parents, both my father and mother, they came to Japan as refugees from Korea War.
ですから家庭の中で、テレビでやっているのが日本語で、私は日本の学校に行ったんですけども、学校の友達がしゃべるのは日本語。ただ父と母が本音の話をするとき、例えば感情がほとばしるとき、2人が喧嘩するときは韓国語だったんです。
So my environment as I was growing up at home, you turn on TV and they're speaking Japanese. I went to Japanese schools and my friends all spoke Japanese. However, my parents, especially when they got emotional and they would argue over something that's important, they would talk in Korean.
ですから言葉自体、なんていうんだろうな、傷ついている、ひび割れている言葉を父と母の本音が韓国語の言葉で、私は本音ではない言葉を使っている、日本語を使っているって意識を子どもの頃から持ってました。
So the language that I heard that my parents spoke had something to do with injury. There was some feeling of something being broken or being cracked. When my parents spoke in Korea, that's when they were talking from the heart. My impression then, as I was growing up, was that the Korean language was something that you speak truthfully with, but the Japanese language, when you're not.
だからなんていうの、その自由に言語2つの国というか2つの言語を行き来しているわけではなくて、すごく言葉というのは不自由なものだなというふうに子どもの頃から思っていました。
So my impression as a child, as I listened to my parents use the languages like that, I didn't get an impression that languages give you freedom. Mm-hmm. I felt that languages would take freedom away. It was something that makes you not mobile.
でそれで私は小学校の6年間ほとんど口を聞いてません、学校で。
During the 6 years of my attending elementary school, I hardly ever spoke at school.
その言葉に対する違和感がずっとあったので、名前を呼ばれて、はいって返事をしなきゃいけないんですけども、そのはいという言葉すら言えなかったです。
I felt uncomfortable about languages all the time. So in school, when they do a roll call, you have to answer present. Even just saying that word present felt uncomfortable to me that I could never say it.
その2つの言語に対する違和感というか、過剰な意識が書くことに向かわせたんだなと思ってます。
So I believe that the fact that I felt so uncomfortable about these languages propelled me to the profession of writing.
Wow. And given the complexity of your relation to languages, what was the translation process like for you? Did you collaborate closely with Morgan Giles? And with that translation, how did you handle the element of Korean within the novel?
翻訳というのはあれですか、私の中で、韓国語と、8月の果てが韓国語と日本語の2言語を使っているという意味ですか？
Are you referring to the fact that the end of August is written, it has both Korean and Japanese words in the book?
Yeah, the fact that, I don't know if Morgan has familiarity with Korean, but that was something that would have been navigated in the translation.
ああ、モーガンがですか。モーガンは、日本語の翻訳者なのですが、小説の中に、8月の果ては日本で出版したものも日本語と韓国語が混在してたので、彼女は、翻訳するために韓国語も勉強をしなければならなかった。
We're talking about Morgan Giles, the translator. She is a Japanese translator. She translates between Japanese and English, obviously. So when the end of August was actually in both languages, Japanese and Korean, so it was bilingual as it was published in Japan as well. When Morgan started working on the translation of the end of August, she had to study Korean, which she did.
先ほどその日本の植民地時代の話というふうにされましたが、日本のその朝鮮半島が1910年に併合された後に朝鮮では言語を使うことが禁じられて、その名前も朝鮮の名前を日本風に変えなきゃいけない、名前も言葉も全て禁じられたというのがあって、そういう意味でその言葉と言葉の軋轢を小説の中に書く必要があったんですね。
You earlier mentioned something about the story being about the colonial age in Korea. Now, after Japan colonized the Korean peninsula in 1910, it was the Korean people were ordered not to use their own language. So they had to even change their names into Japanese. Speak Japanese, change your names to Japanese names. So there was this kind of a pressure and friction around the language, around the languages that they were born with and forced to use.
Thank you, Miri. And also a shout out to Miri's interpreter, Akiko-san, and who is facilitating this conversation. And I think the moment of awkwardness we had before the panel when we were trying to find a place for Akiko-san is testament to the slight friction that always occurs when moving between languages, but it is still an effort worth making. Now let's bring in Kevin.
Oh, don't ask me questions, because I can listen to her forever. You know, I love her. It's just, yeah. Okay, you have to. I'm sorry.
I mean, we could break the format, but Kevin
Yes.
Chen.
Hello.
Kevin Chen is a Taiwanese writer. He began his artistic career as an actor, appearing in a number of films, including one called, appropriately enough, Ghosted.
Oh, yeah.
He now lives in Germany and has produced several novels, as well as short story and essay collections. So Kevin, the linguistic tension in your novel is one writ large in Taiwan. It moves between Mandarin and Taiwanese, or Hokkien. And then when your protagonist, Keith, moves to Berlin, he then adds German and English to the mix, having fled his small town of Yongqing, only to find that the wider world has more linguistic complexity. As someone who yourself exists between languages and between places, how has this kind of fluidity affected your fiction?
I mean, I was listening to my fellow writers. I was thinking, my gosh, everything they said just totally makes sense, you know, and everything I'm going to say is not going to make sense. Because I can share one thing with you, Miri, though. Before the age of seven, I could only speak Taiwanese, which is Hokkien, right? I mean, it's really a political issue, but I would say it's Taiwanese. But getting to school in my generation, we are required to speak only one language, which is Mandarin, which is considered to be the standard Chinese. I mean, you can even argue about that now, because what's Chinese? Chinese is a very complicated idea. There's Cantonese, there's thousands of dialects, and Taiwanese is one of them as well. And but with the policy of that very political party, that we were required to speak only one language, and then had to pick up the language which is called Mandarin. Then I, gradually let go of that language called Taiwanese. So now I could speak Taiwanese, but like barely, But the thing is, when they were talking about getting in between and just, home is a moving idea, I can totally relate to that, because I am from a very small town in central Taiwan. All my life, I just wanted to get away, because I'm from this very conservative family. I have 7 sisters. In order to get one boy, they tried 7 times. Eventually, they got my brother, and they had me. But turned out I was the 8th unwanted daughter because I was gay. So sorry, church. I'm here, so I was like a disgrace of the family, and so I had to go away, and I just wanted to escape. So I escaped to Taipei, where basically in Taipei you only speak Mandarin. That's the place, right? And I remember that the first day at school in college, people in Taipei recognized my accent, say, "Oh, you're from the South." Yeah, I'm sure you have that as well, right here. Like, you're from the South. Like, it wasn't a compliment, So I had, no, it's not a compliment. And then I had to pick up the Taipei accent to be able to be a person who could fit into that environment. And eventually, my journey didn't end. I kept running, and I ran away, and since 2004, I live in Germany, and I have to speak this beautiful language called German, And do you have any Germans here? And oh, hi, German. Yeah, it's a beautiful language. I just want to say that I was speaking, because now I'm in Iowa, so I'm in the group of international writers. So I will speak English to these people and speak German to the German-speaking writers. And one time I was speaking German to this writer who is living in Berlin as well, and some other writers who can only speak English, they suddenly grab me and say, "Kevin, you sound so sexy and manly when you speak German." And what was I talking about? I was talking about Wiener Schnitzel, which is food. But she just thought Wiener Schnitzel is such a sexy word, And it's just so silly, So I'm living with these languages, and I'm totally with you, Gerardo, that home is a moving idea, because for me, hometown is not just one place. I mean, I'm from that very small hometown in central Taiwan. That's the geographical fact that I'm from there, but Taipei is my second hometown. And Berlin is my chosen hometown, where I feel really emancipated. As a matter of fact, I miss Berlin so much when I'm in Iowa, So I'm not trashing Iowa. It's a beautiful place, But just home is a place that you have corners where you feel really just, you hate those corners. You love those corners. There's a place where you can write. There are friends. I don't have family at all in Berlin. Still, I have chosen family. So I'm living with all these languages. I'm just a mess.
Who thinks we should just stop the panel and let Kevin speak German?
No, stop that. I don't want to speak. Ask other people, please. Yeah.
I think we all want that. But I think what we're seeing here is that, as Miri said, identity is often seen as a cut and dried thing. You're one thing or another. That's a neat box you can put around who you are, what identity you assume, but not on this panel. So Kevin, how was the translation process for you? Had you worked with Darryl Sterk before?
No, this is the first time. Darryl Sterk is actually Canadian. We have never met, but we met, I mean, it's COVID, right? We met people, but we never really met. It was Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. At the beginning, he did come back to me. He came to me for solutions, because translation is all about getting the solutions, because it's a really complicated thing. And he had to translate from Taiwanese and Mandarin into English. Luckily and happily, he actually has a Taiwanese wife who actually helped him a lot on that. But whenever he found a solution, he'll come back to me. And eventually, after 3 weeks, I just told him to stay away from me. Yeah, because it's a lot of solutions. I'm just too lazy. Second, I trusted him. Because actually this book is going to be translated into 12 languages. The new deal we just signed, it will be Ukrainian. I mean, how would I be able to, work with my Ukrainian translator? So you just have to trust them. And I know there are some authors who are like basically, divas. They're extremely difficult to work with, and they're very harsh on their translators. I just want to tell writers out there, be nice to your translators, because they are. Going to be the words, their words are going to be your words. So just be nice to them, And Darryl Sterk was a wonderful person. He was really kind, and he was very, translation is never about 100% of translation. You gotta make sure that there's readability in English, so that English readers can get to read that. And that was just wonderful. But I just want, because we have a Japanese writer here, so I just want to say something that my Japanese translator, you know what he did? In order to translate this book into Japanese, he actually went to Taiwan during COVID, and Taiwan had this crazy policy of 2-week strict quarantine during COVID. He did a quarantine, and he went to this very small town that I wrote about, because for translation, he wanted to, feel the air, breathe the air, touch this earth, and look at the clouds and all these things. Isn't that the most Japanese thing you've ever heard? Yeah. And then after I knew that, I went to my other translators of other languages and say, see? He did that. What did you guys do? Yeah, but I enjoy this amazing relationship with my translators. They're all wonderful people. Yeah, very quirky, but just beautiful people.
We love to see a method translator.
Yeah.
Well, if you take nothing else away from this panel, Kevin Chen says to be nice to your translators.
Yes.
A moment ago, Miri mentioned that this kind of linguistic mobility that we've been talking about, this kind of belonging to many places or none, rather than having a single identity, can contribute to a sense of rootlessness, of being untethered, can make you feel a little like a ghost, which is appropriate because all three of these novels are haunted by the past, by family, by hurts that are unresolved, and all of them deal with their ghosts in different ways. Kevin, your novel's actually called Ghost Town, or Guidifang in Mandarin.
Yeah.
And both in Chinese and English, there's a sense of the God-forsaken place, as well as the literal ghosts, some of whom helpfully narrate the novel for us. And it's also haunted by the memory of T, the boyfriend of the protagonist, who I'm not sure how much I should say without spoiling.
Spoiler alert. Well, he killed the German boyfriend. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't going to go that far.
Well, it's the opening chapter anyway, so it's the protagonist. I didn't. Okay.
Well, I was actually going to ask about that, about the relationship between your protagonist, Keith Chen, and yourself, Kevin Chen.
Yeah.
But also, my main question was, among all these hauntings, what haunted you while you were writing this novel?
Oh, everything. Because do we have Taiwanese people in the audience? Yeah, hi. So we Taiwanese people, we grow up with ghosts. I'm not kidding, right? And because in Taiwan, we have this amazing festival in summer, which is 1 month. It's called Ghost Month. So basically, in this month, the gate to the hell, of the hell is open. So all the hungry ghosts that have been trapped down there, they're finally emancipated, and they have this liberty to roam about us, in this world with us, then we have this amazing, rich, very colorful festival celebrating them. Well, we're scared of them. So everything, because the culture of ghosts is so powerful that it actually has an indelible impact on our physical behavior. So we are so crazy that, for example, when I just checked into a hotel in Brooklyn, like 2 blocks away. When I get into the room, I would do the most Taiwanese thing in the world. Before getting into the room, I would knock on the door first. Every Taiwanese knows what I'm talking about, because we crazy Taiwanese believe that all the hotel rooms in the world are taken by spirits or ghosts. By knocking on the door, we're showing some kind of, I don't know, we're being polite, telling that we're here, don't haunt us. Yeah. So it's become being part of it. And I wanted, when I'm writing this story, that I'm writing about family as well, right? And for me, family is a haunting ghost. So I ran away, but they still follow me. I am in Berlin, but they still follow me. So I still have to go back to this, God-forsaken small town that I, try everything in the world to escape from. So it's just like, it's this haunting idea also will extend to Germany, because I live in Germany. Isn't Berlin supposed to be the most haunted places in the world? Come on, with the Berlin Wall and the wars and all these, millions of people died there. So I wanted to bring all these elements together, and that's why eventually the book is called 鬼地方 and Ghost Town. Yeah.
Well, you're actually going to be in New York at Halloween, aren't you? Just
I know.
you wait.
I know.
Miri, in the end of August, it begins and ends with a character called you, Miri, summoning 3 mudangs or shamans to bring forth the spirits of her ancestors. And through these conjurings, you, or the character you, Miri, explores a whole swathe of family history. For you, was the writing of this novel similarly a conjuring of spirits, or was it an exorcism?
そうですね。8月の果ては名前に関する物語でもあるんです。
The novel, The End of August, is about names as well.
名前ってユウという柳の木の柳という名字なんですけども、それは代々名乗っている、それこそ私がここに今いるためには、膨大な死者たちが連なっていて、一人でも欠けてたら、私は存在しない、そういう、名字を継いでいます。まず
So my name, Yu, means willow, the tree. And this name has been handed down for generations. So it's an ancestral name. And this name being born, the fact that I'm bearing this name and I'm standing here today has to do with the chain of all these people who have died. Not one of them was not necessary for me to be here.
それであと私の名前がミリという名前は、美しい里というふうに書くんです。
And my name Miri means beautiful hometown.
それは祖父がつけてくれた名前なんです。
My grandfather gave me this name.
その戦争で、自分の、国を離れなければいけなかった祖父が美しい里というふうに名前をつけてくれたんです。
My grandfather, who had to leave his home, gave me the name Beautiful Hometown.
だからその果たすことができなかった帰郷というか、帰郷の旅を行ったのが、8月の果てという作品なんです。
So the story, The End of August, is really about the traveling back to where you come from, which my grandfather was not able to do.
で、先ほど過去と、時間の話を過去と未来、現在という時間の話の、区切りがつかないというお話をされてたと思うんですけれども、
I believe you mentioned something about the fluidity between past, present, and the future, that there's no distinction among them, right?
時間のこう表現の一つとして、例えばカレンダーの、同じマス目で表現される時間というのがあります。
So for example, in order to visualize time, you could look at a calendar with all the boxes.
で時計も時計は円で表現されて、メモリは一定ですよね。
And if you look at your watch, then you have all these dots that are spaced at equal spacings that you can tell time.
けれどもここに私が今座っていて、皆さんと一緒に座っていて、皆さんもここに座っていて、その下には地層というのがあって、ここにいながらさまざまな時が、断層のように地層のように積み重なっている、その過去の上に立っているというふうに私はいつも意識します。
So, okay, I'm here with all the other panelists, and you in the audience are all here, sitting in your own seats. And we are all sitting, or we all exist on top of the layers in the ground, which is the layers of time, which is the past. I believe that we are all standing or sitting or existing on top of the layers of time. That's how I always look at it.
今という時に過去が含まれているという。
So the time we call now actually includes the past.
そしてすべての瞬間は私は死に接しているというふうに思っています。
And every moment that we experience is, it is right next to death.
だから先ほどのなんて言うんだろう、ホテルをノックして、死者がいるのではないかっていうのは感覚的に分かります。
So I can feel what it's like to have to knock on a hotel room door when you first enter to honor the spirits that may be there.
というのは福島に住んでいるんです。
Well, that has also to do with the fact that I live in Fukushima.
でたくさんの方が津波で亡くなりました。
Where, as you know, many people died because of the tsunami.
で日常的に、夕方帰ってくるときに海の方から山の方に逃げる人を見たとか、そういう話をなんて言うんでしょう、死者を目撃する話が、たくさん聞いています。
So this is almost on a daily basis that I hear people talk about how they saw people trying to run towards the hills, running away from the ocean that was approaching them.
ある場所で、男の子が飛び出してきて海沿いなんですけども、ドライバーが引いてしまった。それで警察に電話をするんです。
So one of the things that I heard is about a boy who was running, and this was close to the ocean, close to the shore, and the car came out, and the car ran over the boy, and they had to call the police.
けれども男の子はいないんです。車から降りても。
And then the driver came out of the car to check on the boy. The boy was not there.
けれども確かに衝撃があったから警察に電話して、で警察の人はそこはどこですかっていうふうに聞くと、ここですっていうふうにその海沿いの場所を言うと、それは人ではなくて幽霊だっていうふうに何回もいろんな人がその同じポイントで男の子を引いてしまう、その津波から逃げる男の子ですね。
So it was actually the driver who tried to call the police because the driver certainly felt the car hit something. It was tangible. That's why he called the police. However, when he came out of the car, he didn't see the boy. The police asked the driver, where is it that where are you, and where did you hit the boy? And the driver explains to the police exactly where he is, and the police's response is usually that, oh yeah, that's the place where they hit. It always happens that I get all these reports from different drivers that they hit a boy. That's not there. It's a ghost.
あと、津波が来た時間は、昼の2時45分とかお昼ですね。
When the tsunami hit that area, it was about 2:45 in the afternoon.
で海沿いで目の前まで津波が来たお宅があるんですけども、必ずその時間になると「助けて!」っていう声が家族全員で聞くっていう。で外に出るけれども誰もいないっていうふうな話も聞きました。
I've also heard a story about a family who lives right close to the shore where the tsunami came right in front of the house, and at 2:45, they hear people screaming, "Please help, help!" When they go outside, they don't see anybody.
あともうたくさんあるからあともう一つだけ。
There are so many stories. I just want to share one more.
学校の先生から聞いた話なんですけれども、海沿いを走っていたら、たくさんの手が、車のフロントガラスとかを叩いた。助けてほしくて中に入れてくれという感じで。
So this is a story, according to a school teacher, when he was driving along the shore, he saw many hands on the windshield, banging on the windshield, asking for help to please let us in.
それは顔や体はないです。手だけです。
Only the hands, no face or body.
それでしばらくして、手がなくなって、手たちがたくさんの手がなくなって車から降りたら手の跡だけついてた。
So after all these hands finally disappeared, he came out of the car to check on the windshield and he saw the fingerprints.
ですからその福島の沿岸部の人たちは、福島だけではなくて、宮城、岩手の沿岸部の人たちは死者と共に生きているという意識を持っています。
So people from Fukushima, as well as those from Miyagi and Iwate, they live daily with the ghosts around them.
There's something very eerie about the quality of these hauntings and the way they're connected to traumas of the past. The way a haunting is something from before that comes back to collide with us again. And the collapsing of time in your novel feels disorienting and calls on the reader to make a special effort to tune into this way of storytelling, this kind of instability where you're never quite sure where you are at a particular moment. And it's an effort worth making because finding all of these things colliding provide a much richer story than if you were situated in just one place. But I'm interested in, for you, how it was, the experience of having this novel translated so recently when it was initially published in 2004. Was that its own form of haunting, something from almost 20 years ago, now coming afresh and having to be engaged with again?
私ですね、8月の果てっていうのは、20年前にちょうど、イラク戦争の、が起きていた時に書いた作品です。
I wrote the end of August about 20 years ago when Iraq war was going on.
それが今、ウクライナ、ロシアによるウクライナの、による侵攻、また戦争の時代になって、そこで出るというのは、不思議な縁を感じますね。
It is interesting how at this time when Russia had just invaded Ukraine, and so there's a new war going on, and they decided that book was being published at this time.
で小説の舞台になっているのが朝鮮戦争の時代です。
My story is, the background of my story is the Korean War.
なんて言うんでしょうね、現実小説が現実と拮抗している、フィクションが拮抗しているみたいな、なんか不思議な感じがします。
So I feel like the reality and the fiction are affecting each other in some ways, has an interesting relationship to each other here.
Yeah, there's definitely a porousness between your work and the real world. And Gerardo, going to you, the haunting in your novel is that of Santiago, the child of Magos and Joseph, who the novel begins with his death, and in her grief, Magos cuts off a slice of his lung, her dead son's lung, and grows a new being from it. That's not a spoiler, it's on the cover flap. And it's also not a spoiler to say that is like not even the most disturbing thing that happens in the novel. And the being that comes from this novel is both a new creation, Monstrilio or M, but it's also haunted by Santiago, the dead boy who he both is and isn't. And this provided a pleasing resonance with a question from the afterword of Kevin's novel, which I would like to put to you now. I know. This was so well planned, except I can't read my own handwriting. Can you become a ghost only after you die, or can you qualify as a ghost while you are still alive?
Wow, that's a great question.
From me.
That's intertextuality.
And I think you can move between stages, but I think there's always like striving to not be a ghost, I feel like, to kind of like matter in the world, right? And so for me, like the creation of this monster in the book, it is about like, it starts with grief, but that's not all it is. It's a departure. And I didn't want the monster to just be like a metaphor for grief. I wanted the monster to be his own being and kind of reject his origins in a way, and kind of also reject what they wanted, like his family wanted to make out of him. And so for me, it is that question of, is he real? Is he a ghost? Is he, does he need to be dead to be that? But in this case, the answer is no. He really fights to be his own being and to kind of like find that personhood, even though he's a monster. But like really like exploring humanity through someone that's not fully human. That was very interesting to me. And also, when I started writing this book, it's not that I wanted to write a book about a monster. I mean, I love monsters, but it wasn't like my first inclination. I wanted to write a book about love and how far can love go and if it can break. And so I put a family to the test. Can they love a monster? And can the monster love himself? And so that to me was the question of the book. I can't answer it, and I don't think the book answers it, but it's the exploration of that idea of how much love can withstand.
Well, I don't know what it says about me, but I found the monster the most relatable character.
Yeah, me too.
Right? So we have come to the moment that is a little like a seance where suddenly the audience is visible and these spectral beings come before us. And so I'm done asking questions. It's over to you now. Do we have any questions for our wonderful panelists? Oh, we don't have time. Oh, sorry,
Well,
I lied.
I thought we have an hour, so we still have 10 minutes, right?
Oh.
Bye. My gosh.
Thank you so much.
Chaos. Sorry, everyone. You'll have to waylay our panelists on the way out and ask them your questions then. Okay, right. Okay, we're wrapping up quicker than I expected. Please buy everyone's books. They're available from our official bookseller, the Center for Fiction. And our 3 panelists will be at signing desk C. Please go and get their autographs in your brand new purchased copies. Thank you for being here, everyone. And thank you
very
to
much.
our panelists.